Hey, what's up guys? UrAvgWarGamer is back with another video of Warships, and in this video I will be taking a look at all the cold ships that we currently have in the armory, and I will be reviewing them one by one for everyone out there who wants to know the strengths and weaknesses of every ship. I will have the chapters in the description below so you can go to your specific ship, and if you want to know the strengths and weaknesses, I will explain them in short. It's not going to be detailed, it's going to be just simple, the strengths and weaknesses and why it's good, and should I recommend that ship or not, or is it worth buying for coal, because at the end it's your coal, and the coal is not easy to come by. It does come over time, but it takes still a time regardless. So let's talk about it. But before that, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, be sure to subscribe, because I make daily World of Warship videos, or almost daily, and give you a lot of insight related to World of Warships content, like the newest devlogs or something that might be new. I will cover in this very quickly on my channel, and will help you guys to even give you some guides related to these sort of things, like in this case, the coal ships recommendation. So let's talk about our first ship, which is gonna be the Azuma, or Azuma I would say. It's the Japanese heavy cruiser, and I would say it's pretty decent. Couple of things in terms of strengths that I would say for the Azuma has, that as a heavy cruiser, it's definitely sort of unique. I mean, we do have the Japanese cruiser line, like the light cruiser like Kyoto. That line is a light cruiser, even though it kind of has, very big and thick sort of long hulls. But even then, the caliber that Azuma has, not even Zhao, the other tech tree line, have. Like the Zhao has 203, the Yodo has like less caliber guns, I don't remember really, but the Azuma does have 310mm guns, so that makes it unique. Also, it has decent firing range, it has decent concealment, it can go to like 11.9km concealment, and also it does have improved Ag alpha. Like the Japanese has this very typical feature that gives them really good high alpha, which kind of rivals to that of 406mm guns like you find on Montana or any typical battleship that does have that higher caliber. Azuma can bring that heavy salvo weight just like that 406mm caliber gun. And this alpha, and with really good fire chance with battle cruiser dispersion that it has, makes it a very good cruiser to set fires and deal huge damage. Like you can do like 8k, 10k in every 17.6 seconds of reload time, which I would say is pretty impressive. The HP pool is decent. Again, for a heavy cruiser, that's an advantage. That's basically a strength. The guns, the HE, and even the AP, again, it's a heavy cruiser. It does a lot of damage to the broadside cruisers, and even do pretty decent pen to battleships, like 8.6k alpha, battle cruiser dispersion that I already said, makes it a very good ship. Also, its maneuverability, again, sort of heavy cruiser, that comes as a weakness. It's not like Zhao, it's not like Yodo. It's definitely onto the higher side, very close to that of sort of battleships, like in terms of turning circle and rudder shift as well. But that is something that I would say they have given as a weakness, so that if you turn out and broadside, which is devastating on this heavy cruiser. Again, mind you, that even though it's a large cruiser, it's still not immune to get citadel. In fact, since it's a big cruiser, it's going to take more shells, because it does have a bigger profile, and then you have like this huge citadel, which you have to be very careful of, okay? The strengths, I will remind you guys again. The strengths, good guns, really good guns, long range, maneuverability, really good speed, maneuverability in terms of turning circle and red shift is not good, concealment is good, and you just play in kiting. That's the role of this cruiser, and you will get super value from this. The armor profile is not great at all. It's going to be overmatched by every battleship. Having, I would say, I'm not going to say that it's going to be overmatched by 380, but sometimes they shoot at the bow. You're going to get even overmatched by that. So be careful from this armor. Armor is very fragile, especially when you get up-tiered. And if you play it at long range, you're going to get decent damage from this cruiser. But in terms of game impact, I'm not going to say that it has the highest game impact. Setting fires and doing damage to battleships, meanwhile the destroyers are still roaming around and contesting the caps, yeah, that's where Azuma might be struggling. But still, overall, it does have like spotter plane. Do not forget that. Hydro and by the way, really good repair party. It has like really good cooldown of 40 seconds, which is kind of the meta thing. 40 seconds of cooldown time is a huge advantage, and Azuma does have that, but it is only because it has really bad armor. Just like I said, it has gigantic citadel. Should I recommend that ship? Well, I'm gonna say that if you are a very defensive sort of player, okay, and if you want to farm damage, well, Azuma is really good. But if you want to have some game impact by pushing in under some situations, well, it's gonna be having really bad time. So that is totally up to you. The DPM wise, it's good, but it not in terms of the armor profile or maybe I would say the game impact wise. But even though I'm gonna just going to recommend Azuma still if you want to play it at long range, kiting, long range only. If you do that, Azuma is not a bad pick. Recommendation wise, I can't recommend you. Totally up to you though at the end that whether this armor is worth it for you or not. Alright, so the next battleship, which obviously a battleship, is going to be the Iwami. It's a Japanese tier 9 premium battleship that you can buy for coal. And let's talk about the strengths and weaknesses. The first strength that I definitely know about the Iwami is going to be the guns. The guns have decent reload time, they have good overmatching capabilities. You can simply overmatch Azuma or maybe something like Alaska that has 27mm plating. Most cruisers at tier 9, at tier 8 have 27mm plating. So you can overmatch that 27mm of armor, okay? That's the advantage that you get on Iwami. Overmatching cruisers. On the other hand, you have decent penetration, you have decent range, which is 22.3 kilometer, and you do have a couple of other things, like I would say the torpedoes, which is something that is very unique for this battleship. Like you can see here, you have 4 torpedoes on each side, very long range, like Yoshino-like torpedoes. I mean, Yoshino is a tier 10 supercruiser, which we will talk in later part of the video, but you can see here it has 21k damage. Pretty funny tops, but they can be very useful at even close ranges. So if the battleship is trying to brawl you, get to your broadside, well, you do have torpedoes, okay? Good advantages with the guns, overmatching, good penetration, good range, and overall good artillery platform. By the way, it has 2.1 Sigma, do not forget about that. So accuracy is gonna be pretty overall okay. I'm not gonna say like super amazing, but it's definitely above average. On the other hand, in terms of survivability, there comes a couple of strengths and couple of weaknesses. Now, the strength of the Iwami really is the armor. In kind of different way, like it does have 50mm deck armor, but in terms of the weakness, which again relates to the armor, that it does have the exposed citadel. So it can take citadels, so do not forget that, okay? The citadel is raised above water, but if you stay angled, it can be relatively tanky battleship, but it's not having the best of the speed. So I still don't like the Iwami, since the speed is not there. It does not have access to speed boost. It does not have access to, I would say, the spotter plane. So maybe these things kind of come as a weakness. But torpedoes, didn't talk about the secondaries, which comes as a strength. It's something that is very unusual for Iwami. UrAvgWarGaming somehow managed to give secondaries that if you fully build for it, it can have like 10.5 or 10 kilometer secondary range. You can go and check that out. That does have really good DPM, damage per minute. If you fully build for secondaries, which I have done that, you can actually do pretty well with these secondaries. Especially if you just fully build for it, which I haven't. I should use the 4-point manual secondary battery aiming. If I do that, I will be doing pretty insane damage to the cruiser, especially because your armor penetration can be as good as 32mm, which by the way, you can easily pen the battleships of the WoW, and cruisers will just going to get melted, because then we also have like these calibers, small caliber guns that have 37mm penetration, all thanks to this IFHE. So you will just going to pen a lot of damage, but you are losing out the fire chance. Totally up to you what do you think, but this is a really good advantage as at close ranges. However, what I don't like about the Iwami is that it does not have like really good cooldown time. I mean, you build it for secondaries like Iwami, you make it secondary sort of battleship like Iwami, but it does not have enough range, which is 10.5 or 10, or it's also not having that extra sort of cooldown time that you want, like the 40 seconds like you find on Massachusetts or Georgia. You're not getting that on Iwami. So it's something that kind of makes it weird. So again, situationally useful secondaries again. I mean, if you are in an intense fire, it's going to be difficult. Concealment wise, it's decent. Anti-defense, it's poor. It's really poor with anti-defense, so don't consider yourself to tank against aircraft carriers. But I would say, should I recommend it? I would say yes. Iwami is a really good battleship, to be honest. It does hits every point. you have like some, secondary option. I must say that usually battleships don't get. You do have the guns, which it's pretty nice to have with 2.1 Sigma and good overmatch on cruisers, good reload time, and then you have like these torpedoes, which kind of makes this battleship still unique, and the armor profile really makes it decent. So I would say I'm going to be recommending Iwami more than Azuma for sure. So definitely worth it. Alright, so the next coal ship is going to be the Halford. This is a tier 9 American destroyer, and well, it's basically very gimmicky. Gimmicky in a way that it's the only destroyer that has planes. Believe it or not, it has planes. It's a hybrid destroyer, which I can't believe that they have released. Now, Halford, for the planes, actually trade out so many things. Now, let's talk about the strengths first before we talk about the weaknesses. The strength is going to be the planes. The planes that can actually spot so many things, like the destroyers. You can spot the destroyers for yourself. You basically stay unspotted, and if there is a destroyer that has RPF, you basically launch the planes. You basically go around that area where you suspect that the enemy destroyer is, and you basically spot it. And what you can do is to just attack those planes on a very plain sort of area to let the DD spot. Okay, you can let the DD spot by just shooting onto the random area, because you cannot directly, once you spot the destroyer, you cannot like have a perfect aim on it. It's impossible. The destroyer might be below your aim or somewhere else, and the aim cannot be possible. These planes have like really high distance between the aim once you spot the DD. So it's difficult. So you basically spot by shooting attack aircraft and spot the destroyer. Meanwhile, you spot the destroyer, you do have the pre-firing machine time of 4 to 5 seconds. So during that, if you use and just shoot the planes or shoot the rockets onto something and spot the destroyer at the same time, you have like some seconds to shoot the guns or something that you can have some sort of trade against him, okay? And trade well against him because of the spotting. So the spotting advantage is there. You can use the rockets, and they are also going to buff the Halford. You will have now 5 planes, which definitely gonna be doing some damage to the battleships. Especially you can set fires. If you can set fire, the DCP, and then you can utilize your guns, which are also, by the way, getting buffed to 2.8 seconds base. So the reload time is really not looking impressive at all. It's only having 4 guns, by the way, which really sucks. That's the trade-off that I was saying that Halford really gets because of the planes. It trades everything for planes. Unfortunately, it does not even have like full set of torpedoes like you find on Fletcher class destroyers. Only 10 torpedoes. Oh, sorry, only 5 torpedoes compared to the Fletcher's 10 or maybe the Black's 10 or whatever. But you do have like 13.5 kilometer range. If that seems to be interesting to you, sure, range is good, but the torpedoes not so good. But on the other hand, you do have really decent speed, 39.9 knots. You do have, like I would say, the engine boost, and you do also have the smokes. American smokes are really good. And one thing that I would say as a strength that Halford gets is going to be that you can have like 2 planes, or I would say 2 attacking flights on deck. You have like a total of 8 planes, and you can launch 1, I would say 4 size of attacking flight at a single time, and then you can launch once again if you have waited for 240 seconds, because the aircraft preparation for 4 planes is 120 seconds. So for 8 planes, it's 240. So for 240 seconds, you don't need to use all the planes. Okay? You don't need to use planes. They will just load up. The second size of attacking flight will load up on your deck, which is going to be the total of 8, right? So that is the thing that Halford gets for sure. Concealment, again, something trades everything for those planes. So at the end, survivability, not something that I would say impressive, but it's not too bad as well. It's just okay. So is it worth it? Even after the buffs that they will be doing? I don't think so. There are so many tier 9 powerful destroyers out there. Like there are so many good destroyers. Halford losing out everything for that spotting on destroyers, doing some damage on battleship, maybe setting a fire, is something that really not makes it that worthy. So I would say avoid it, especially that the carrier rework is coming, the CV spotting rework is coming, so that's gonna affect these hybrid ships as well. So Halford will be one of the victim, as you call it. So I would say it's not worth it. Try to avoid and spend on something else like coal. Alright, so let's talk about Tulsa. It's a tier 9, another American cruiser this time. And by the way, if you are a fan of Des Moines, if you love Des Moines gameplay, which you find on a tier 10 tech tree heavy cruiser line, well, the Tulsa is exactly for you. But Tulsa is at tier 9. So what are the strengths of Tulsa? Well, first of all, it does have really good reload time, just like on the Des Moines. 5.5 seconds base, but you do have only 4 guns instead of 6 guns that you find on Des Moines, and you also do not have that armor plating that you find on Des Moines, which is 30mm deck and side. The bow is still the same like you find on Des Moines, which kinda is an advantage at tier 9, but again, 27mm plating, well, you're going to get overmatched by everything. But the thing about the Tulsa is that you are playing it as a Des Moines. You basically use the islands as cover and use the 4 guns as front. And by the way, they have recently buffed the Tulsa guns having a destroyer dispersion, even though it's a cruiser guns. Usually we don't see a cruiser getting a destroyer dispersion unless it's a Zao. Zao has a destroyer dispersion. Tulsa is also a destroyer dispersion, okay, on it. So that gives very tight grouping of the shells because obviously the dispersion ellipse is very small. So you're getting a huge advantage pinpointing the shells where you want to hit. Means you can citadel cruisers, do good damage to destroyers. The DPM is pretty decent. 197 kg DPM is pretty nice. And you do have super heavy AP that you find on Des Moines. So it's a mini Des Moines at tier 9, except its armor profile is not something that I would say pretty good at all. Again, using islands as cover is something that you do. So the advantage is the guns. The front turrets. The reload time is the advantage. The disadvantage might be something like the armor. The disadvantage something might be like, I would say, maybe the HP pool, I would say. Like it's not having that good of an HP compared to Des Moines. Des Moines does have slightly better HP, but still it's relevant. It's still okay. It does not have really good torpedo protection either. But however, what it is really good in is going to be the concealment. The concealment for some reason is actually very impressive, 9.5 kilometer. Which, by the way, does not mean that it's still going to have a 10-kilometer radar that you find on Des Moines. It has a 9-kilometer detection of ships with their radar, but still, concealment buff is really good because you can work around. If you get spotted, you will spot the destroyers because the buffer between 9.5 and 9 is not that big. You will eventually push into that destroyer and will be able to spot him with radar. So that is really nice. The hydro is there, defensive air fire is also there, but the anti-defense, not a big fan of anti-defense, to be honest. I mean, it's okay, somewhat usable if you use defensive air fire, but try to avoid defensive air fire. Use hydro because that's where you will get more value by spotting destroyers if they are in smoke within 5 kilometer. And obviously the guns are the star of the show. Overall, I'm gonna say if you play Des Moines, if you have ever played Des Moines, and if you love the Des Moines gameplay, if you specifically love the Des Moines gameplay, then Tulsa is for you. But if you haven't played even a Des Moines, please do not touch that. You will eventually find it really difficult. You cannot use the islands. It's an island hugging cruiser. Push island to island sort of cruiser. It's not open water at all. So avoid it if you haven't played Des Moines. If you like Des Moines, definitely buy Tulsa. It's definitely worthy ship at tier 9 and very competitive as well in the rank, especially if you know what you're doing. Alright, so the next battleship this time is going to be the Kearsarge. This is an American battleship that is available for coal. And I'm gonna say, unlike Halford, which does have planes, well, Kearsarge does also have planes. But here's the funny thing. Kearsarge has 5 times the rocket amount compared to what Halford can deliver onto a target. If you don't understand this, well, let me explain. Halford can shoot 5 rockets. Kearsarge can shoot 15 rockets onto a broadside cruiser, battleship, or whatever, even on angled ship. You can literally do absolutely ridiculous, insane amount of damage if you use rockets properly. And also, even though it does have a tumor, because it's literally having the carrier deck over on top of the battleship hull, at long ranges, it can be a bit tankier because you do have 38mm side and deck, and also the deck on to the top of the carrier, I would say, plating or something like this tumor that you are finding here. So it can be resistant except the fact that once you are in the medium and close range, which is going to be a very, very big disadvantage, and I'm going to emphasize it a lot. Kearsarge is not for medium to close range. It's only built for long range, and it is really good in that because it does have 12 guns, and that's the biggest strength of the Kearsarge. Rockets is stupidly powerful. I'm not gonna lie, they are overpowered, to be honest, for I would say for a tier 9. Not even midway HE rockets having that alpha onto a single drop or payload that the Kearsarge gets. And then you do also have like really good guns. Now these are not the Iowa guns, these are North Carolina guns that you find on a Tech 3 tier 8 battleship. It's not tier 9 upgrade Iowa guns. So this is something that you should be keeping in mind, which means the shell's gonna be a bit arcier, but remember that the alpha damage is still pretty good, and then you have the HE shells, by the way, that you can kind of make it work. Like you set fires, he DCPs, then you launch plane, and you set double permanent fire with rockets. Like that's what usually happens if you play Kearsarge at long ranges. So it basically becomes a flamethrower. If you want to make it a flamethrower, this battleship is pretty good in that. Like shoot HE. And I'm not gonna lie, the HE is just pretty potent. You have 1.9 Sigma with the dispersion that you can get with Artillery Plotting Room Mod 2, 11% dispersion buff with this, and then you have 1.9 Sigma with really good gun alpha, and the reload time might be higher, but again, it really makes up for it for the salvo that you can bring onto the broadside cruiser, depth striking them, or onto the broadside battleship when you are shooting HE. Or AP, whatever, it will do wonders still. It's just that the shells are a bit slower and arcier, like you find on NC. Concealment is the weakness. 13.2 kilometer concealment. It's not super concealed, but it's not like super terrible either. It's just an average, okay? The biggest weakness of the Kearsarge is that it does have Citadel. It can be Citadel, but this tumor is the biggest weakness, and you take huge damage. You take so much damage. 20k damage onto the Kearsarge broadside is 100% possible, and especially if someone shoots you here, they will get full pens. So yeah, keep that in mind. Torpedo protection isn't that impressive either, so the torpedoes are a big concern. You are gigantic, your turning cycle is huge, that's a big weakness, and then your rudder shift is also not impressive either. Means that the Kearsarge, if mispositioned, will die really quickly. If you know how to position in a battleship, at long ranges, play Kearsarge. But if you haven't touched the NC guns, because that's going to be the recommendation that I will do. If you haven't played NC, try to avoid Kearsarge because the shells might not be like super fast and super coming to the target. It takes time and it needs some practice before you aim well. So aim well is important, positioning is important, then Kearsarge will work and actually work really well. For me, it's one of the very powerful tier 9 battleship. I would say somewhat over-tuned for a tier 9. Just to make sure you can use the rockets and find out, and use the guns to actually find out how it is really good in that. So recommended, highly recommended upon some conditions if you know positioning and if you have played the NC a bit at Tech 3 line. Alright, so the next ship is going to be the Neustrashimy, a Russian tier 9 premium destroyer. Now, one thing to note, that this will cost you quite a lot of gold. It's going to be costing you 285,000 gold if I'm not wrong, just because it was an ex-steel ship. Yes, that's right, it was an steel ship, steel resource ship that they have converted into a coal ship, and hence they asked for higher price. But on the other hand, is it really worth it? Well, I would say it is pretty decent. It's pretty decent. The role of the Neustrashimy really is that you basically use your concealment and utilize your heal and do everything with the rest of your consumables, okay? So what I really meant by that you have really good concealment for its tier, okay? You're basically a zombie and concealed destroyer at the same time. Now, what I meant by that is that like you have like 5.6 kilometer concealment, really competitive. And on top of that, you have super heal, really competitive. And then you have speed boost, defensive air fire against somewhat defending against aircraft carrier, especially if you stay in smoke, which again, like you do have like super survivability features. The concealment, the heal, the smoke, the defensive air fire, the speed boost, all of these tools are survivable like making the Neustrashimy very, very survivable in some rough conditions. Especially if you take a lot of damage, you heal significantly. Okay, and funny enough, you do have really decent torpedoes, and you also do have, not the impressive guns, but they do have Soviet shell arcs. The shells are fast, and they can just hit to the battleship, cruiser, or destroyer at long ranges. So what you do usually on Neustrashimy, you trade, even though you don't have impressive DPM at all, you utilize your concealment, take the engagement whichever is favorable, shoot the guns, even though the DPM is bad, but then you kind of improve, I would say, against a destroyer that will take more damage, or you will trade better once you are using the super heal. So basically do the damage, smoke up, trade somewhat well, and then basically heal up and then fight him again. And eventually, because he cannot heal back most of the time, or most destroyers cannot heal at this tier, they will eventually lose against you. Your DPM is also good at long ranges. You will fight better as well. So if you are shooting at 7 at 8 kilometers further, you will have more advantage because Soviet shell arcs. So against Americans or French that have like really archy shells, you can play at long ranges and confirm them if they are spotted. This is like really good thing about the Neustrashimy. It's a very decent board, decent HP as well, like tier 10 levels of HP, and especially you have super heals, which is pretty nice. And then you have torpedoes, which are also pretty nice. 18k torpedoes, like these are the torpedoes that you find on gearing the damage level, and you're getting on Neustrashimy, except the range is not like 16 kilometer, but still very impressive, very good detection on the torpedoes. Reaction time, as you can see, is pretty good. So Neustrashimy has basically all the tools, every tool to deal with everything. Cruisers, I'm not going to say that you can do well against cruisers, but that's the story for most of the destroyers. However, you can do well with battleships, you can do well with destroyers, you can do well with aircraft carriers. Why? Even if the aircraft carrier do damage by rockets, you do have defensive fire, you do have smoke, you do have super heal. Super heal is a game changer. Super heal and concealment is just really makes Neustrashimy impressive. I would say it's an underrated tier 9 destroyer. A lot of people, I don't know why they kind of dump Neustrashimy onto the gun department, because the reload time is not impressive, that's for sure. Only 4 guns, 3.5 seconds. The DPM is definitely not that good. But again, Shimakaze level of DPM still, regardless. At tier 10, the Shimakaze has that much DPM, and Neustrashimy still have it at tier 9, still makes it good. So I'm not going to say that you will be certainly better against aircraft carriers, but the heal. So is it worth it? Just remember, you can always use Nikolai Kuznetsov, extra healing, extra TCP at the end, which is really funny, but so powerful. Neustrashimy is a really good package. If you know what you're doing, Neustrashimy can carry out so many games. It's an underrated destroyer in my opinion. A lot of people don't even talk about it nowadays. I would say it's expensive, but if you want to buy this ship, I think it's a really good destroyer. I would say, I'm not going to say highly recommended, but it's like really recommended enough that maybe I might prefer it over the black in some situations. Although black does come into the coal review, but Neustrashimy does have really key advantages that I just cannot really miss out on that, especially the heal. So it's worth it for sure. Alright, so the next ship is going to be the German Z44, another tier 9 destroyer. Now, I am not that impressed by Z44 at all. I particularly don't like it for many reasons, and I would simply say not recommended. Well, you will find out why. Now, the speciality of Z44, I will already say it in advance, that it has a lot of torpedoes. In terms of the DPM, I would say the DPM of the Z44 is something that maybe makes them interesting, or makes it interesting. Like, you do have 72.3 seconds of reload time, 13.7k damage, so you pump out 10 torpedoes every minute. Okay, and that is the gimmick of Z44. You are a German destroyer that have a lot of torpedoes with 12 kilometer range, so you basically spam torpedoes. You are basically a torpedo boat. But problem is, for these torpedoes, you don't get anything else in return, unfortunately. Especially, like, literally if I compare it with Neustrashimy. Neustrashimy is just straight up better. straight up better in every department that I can think of. Z44 is not, first of all, not that good concealment. For a torpedo boat destroyer, 5.9 is not that impressive. Regardless of whatever you say it, this will cause a lot of problems, okay? It should have been like 5.7, and then we might talk about Z44. The speed, worse than Neustrashimy. I'm just going to compare it with Neustrashimy. So if you are thinking of buying Z44 for cheap, think of Neustrashimy before even think of Z44, okay? Anti-defense, you don't have any defensive air fire, at least compared to Neustrashimy. You do have better torpedo DPM with better reload time, but not having better alpha. Okay, you do have better range with torpedo, but not better alpha. You do have guns, but again, 4 seconds of reload time, that's not going to cut it out. By the way, it does have really poor firing angles. Believe it or not, these 5 guns, if you want to use them all, you have to show quite a lot of broadside to bring all 5 guns into action. So that's a problem, to be honest. Like Neustrashimy does not have this problem that big compared to the Z44. So many issues, especially when you are comparing it with other coal destroyer like the Neustrashimy and even Black. So it's something that I would say, just like Halford, it has traded out, just like the Halford had traded out so much for the planes, it has traded out so much for the torpedoes that I won't say I will recommend you. Avoid buying it. I mean, if this is the last destroyer that you have, that you want to buy for coal, like you have tons of coal, like me, having sitting around 1.3 million, go for it. But I will still not gonna spend the coal on Z44 regardless, to be honest. That's not just worth it. You are not gonna be playing it much, especially if you have Neustrashimy or any other destroyer. Okay, so it's not a good investment and worthy for tier 9, in my opinion. Alright, so we have another German ship, and that is going to be a super cruiser. I would say it's kind of like the Azuma, the Agir is kind of like the Azuma that I have talked about before, the Japanese cruiser that I started with initial. The Agir is kind of like that, but having its own German sort of gimmicks. Now, the first thing about the Agir that is significantly better compared to the Azuma is the armor. The armor of Agir is better. You have 30mm deck, which means you're not going to get overmatched by, I would say, the Iwami. You're not going to get overmatched by, I would say, the Pommern. Pommern, 380mm guns, you're not going to get overmatched. If you utilize this armor properly, and you are not going to basically show broadside, you can mitigate so much damage from the battleships as a heavy cruiser like Agir. 30mm deck is a huge at tier 9, I must say. Moreover, you do have this very thick armor belt, which is very resistant to HE shells, which again is an advantage, yet the disadvantage is also going to be that the battleships shooting you, like all battleships that have like really insane pen, will most likely penetrate you, and they will not going to get overpens, unlike some cruisers that have like really thin plating and they usually get overpens, okay? This will receive full penetration damage. So Agir will take huge damage, and by the way, as a German, you might be thinking that it does have a turtleback armor, but well, it's unfortunately not the strong turtleback. It's a weak turtleback. You take Citadel at long ranges to medium ranges. Be careful about that. Agir is not the ship that can tank and take Citadels, okay? It will take Citadels and it will, receive significant damage. So that is something that you should be avoiding, okay? These are the strengths and weaknesses in a couple of things that I have explained. The torpedoes, on the other hand, is the star. Sorry, the torpedo protection, on the other hand, is the star of the show. Agir has, like, I think the best torpedo protection at tier 9. 37% is absolutely impressive, considering the HP is also 62,000. So you are very, very resistant to the torpedoes of destroyers. You can tank a lot because of this torpedo protection from torpedoes, which is very nice. Your gun performance is also pretty good as I would say the Azuma. It also have battle cruiser dispersion. It also have like really good AP. Like the AP is slightly better, I would say, compared to the Azuma. On the other hand, the HE is absolutely not. It's definitely a downgrade. As you can see, 27% fire chance like the Azuma, but the alpha is 2,000 less. 2,000 less compared to the Azuma. Yes, Azuma does have modified HE shells because of this captain skill, which I haven't used onto the Agir. This worsens the detection. But improving the I would say the HE Alpha on top of already very mediocre HE Alpha is something that is not worth it. Azuma does get more value, Agir does not. But however, what gives Agir a lot much more value in return is going to be the concealment, 12-kilometer concealment. So you're not missing out on that sort of a bad concealment that you find on Azuma because of that captain skill that I was taking. Okay. Tanky ship takes damage. There's no doubt about that. It has fire duration 60 seconds. I haven't even talked about the fire duration on Azuma. It does, however, not having the fast cooldown time that you find on Azuma. That was actually a significant advantage. Extra repair party you only find on Azuma. Agir does not have. It has 4 heals. The Azuma has 5 heals. It has 80 seconds of cooldown time. Azuma has 40 seconds. So in terms of that, Agir is slightly worse, but armor is definitely better. The guns, in my opinion, I would give slight edge to Agir guns more than Azuma. Firing angles, I can't say. The firing angles in kiting, you can struggle a bit in terms of kiting, but one thing more that Agir has is the torpedoes. 6 km torpedoes for self-defense. These are very, very good that you don't also find on Azuma. So, with that said, will I recommend Agir over Azuma? Well, honestly, if you like to play a bit too mid and close range, and you are not specifically like kiting, like you do on Azuma, Agir is a lot better option. Especially if you hate overmatch. If you hate overmatch, this will help a bit. I'm not going to say a lot because then you also have like 27mm bow, which again is very vulnerable, but then you can bait quite a lot of shells to hit onto this section by just speed juking at mid to long ranges. So that's where Agir will shine. And at close ranges, you can definitely brawl, which Azuma will absolutely struggle like crazy. And that's why Agir will be recommended for that medium to close range, for sure over the Azuma. Alright, so the next ship is going to be the Pommern, another German ship, but this time a battleship. And Pommern unfortunately got somewhat power crept. Back then when Pommern got released, it was actually a really nice brawling battleship. But with the release of the new battleships, like for example the Valparaiso, that just does not die, have an infinite F key, can DCP infinitely and can heal up significantly, Pommern seems to be like one tier lower. Unfortunately, that's the reality. But even then, I'm not going to say Pommern is stupidly bad. It's an average brawling battleship. Unfortunately, well, Pommern have this average thing going for it. I mean, so many battleships, so much meta has changed. Like, for example, nowadays we are coming up with battleships that having faster cooldown time on heals. Pommern does not have that. So it definitely suffers. If it gets focused, the HP pool, even though it's good, it's not enough to sustain till the another heal come up and help him survive. So it's a bit difficult. You do have 380mm guns, but they don't have like really good penetration. It's okay penetration for 380mm guns. If you are top tier, for example, and shooting onto the tier 7 battleships, yes, then it's fine. But then you have 1.5 Sigma, which I kind of hate. I really hate. For example, we have the Kurfürst, okay, that has 406mm guns, okay, still having 1.8 Sigma. Pommern having 1.5 Sigma kind of makes it feel sad and bad. Honestly, yes, it's kind of popular. I usually see it in randoms a lot. People play it, but again, as a brawler, it struggles. You don't have healing. You do have the Hydra, which is good, but you don't have spotter like the Kurfürst. Okay, you do have really good secondaries. You do well, but how long will you be able to sustain the fire coming from the enemy team? You don't have the heals for that. Okay, you do have the armor. Yes, you do have the armor. You have really good armor, like somewhat 80mm plating. You do have 50mm here, but the biggest problem for all the German ships is going to be that gigantic, huge, humongous superstructure. Like, I mean, it takes so much damage, man. Everyone shoots at the superstructure. AP, HE, it takes huge damage. And broadside, it takes huge damage. Everything is going to be the full pen because it does have a lot of armor. It bounces a lot, but people shoots here when angled, and people shoots here when it's broadside. So it takes a lot of damage. Unfortunately, reality. You do have the icebreaker. Does help a lot. It's not going to get overmatched from the bow, but still, Pommern 1.5 Sigma is just, I don't know. Range is good. you have torpedoes, which is unlike Kurfürst, Frederick de Grosse, is definitely an advantage. So at least at close ranges, like super close ranges, you do have something going for it. You do have mediocre anti-defense. Consider yourself there, to be honest, against CVs. CVs just gonna love dropping you, to be honest. Maneuverability is average for a battleship. Concealment is also average. The problem with the Pommern is really the superstructure. Takes huge damage. Does not have those gimmicky things that kind of currently hits the meta in a way that you prefer those battleships over the Pommern. Honestly, why you pick Pommern over some of the newest battleships like Valparaiso? We will get more ships like Valparaiso. Valparaiso is the new standard. Niort, for example, this is the newest ship. Okay, it's not brawling, but it has tons of torpedoes. Okay, it does have tons of torpedoes. It does have like 60 seconds of cooldown on heal, even though it's not a brawling battleship. Tells a lot where the meta has gone. And Pommern, unfortunately, does not fit to the meta. Yes, you can kite, you can somewhat work your way up. A lot of players will struggle to do that. Like, only the really good players can just make Pommern survive and push into the exact position where they will get all the advantages of secondaries. And yes, you have Gunther Lutens, whatever you call it, you can use the secondary hits, you get the rebounds or whatever, the reload time gets better. Everything is good, but still not good enough. For me, it's not the meta, unfortunately. Should I recommend it? I mean, there are other cold battleships that I would say are kind of better. The Iwami does have secondaries as well. Not like 12 kilometer that you find on Pommern. Not that you do have the hydro on Pommern. Pommern has a really good hydro, that's for sure. But still, Iwami do somewhat decent, and Iwami does also have torpedoes like Pommern. So, yeah. And 20 kilometer torpedoes, you can somewhat land torpedoes. Pommern is only for sort of close range with torpedoes, so I'm not gonna say it's worth it. I would say avoid it because there are some other battleships that are kind of worth it, especially like Iwami over the Pommern. So yeah, that's my thought and opinion on that. So you might not find Somme in the armory in coal section, which is kind of weird, right? So you might be thinking, what is Somme? Well, Somme is actually a coal ship that is possible to obtain once you complete the collection that requires coal. Yeah, that's right. I mean, you have to collect the containers, complete the collection, and you will get the Somme. Now, Somme is a tier 9 tech tree copy of Jutland. And you might be thinking, okay, if Somme is Jutland, why should I not play Jutland? Well, couple of reasons. First of all, Somme is a premium ship. It's gonna earn significantly more credits. It does have a credit modifier built into the Somme, unlike Jutland. And unlike Jutland, Andrew Cunningham is the captain that you might not want to use on Jutland. You might want to use on Daring, you might want to use on Minotaur, Conqueror, Thunderer, whatever you call it, the tier 10 ships, or the super ship maybe. You want to invest that captain onto a ship like that, not onto the Jutland. So the Somme comes in as a premium ship, gives you tons of value. You can simply put the captain with no retraining required, and that's where Somme has significant advantages. Now, if we really think of Somme as a Jutland, is it worth it? Well, honestly, if I say one thing, Jutland is a really good ship at tier 9. It has really good strengths. Now, the best thing about the Jutland or Somme, whatever you call it, you do have short burst, you do have hydro, you do have heal, which kind of reminds me of something like Neustrashimy. Even though it's not like Neustrashimy levels of heal, Neustrashimy has just a bonker super heal, which just heals significant, but you still have a heal that can heal 2.7k HP per pop. And then you have a hydro that can just help you to spot torpedoes for almost more than a 3 minute. And then you have short smokes, which I would say are the best smokes in this entire game that not Neustrashimy has. Neustrashimy does not have these short burst smoke generator, which I would say are the best. You hit and run. You hit and run. And on top of that, you have really good concealment, really good maneuverability, really good, I would say the guns, the DPM is pretty good. And, as you can see, HEDPM, APDPM is pretty decent. HEDPM could be better, but again, you do have APDPM. And AP full pen on Destroyer, like on Jutland, you will full pen DDs. And you have Andrew Cunningham, and Andrew Cunningham is such a great captain. Extra consumables, you just need to get 2 kills. Just get 2 kills, 2 consumables. And then a couple of other talents. Really really kind of makes me recommend the Somme. It's not like superb, I would say, like insane gunboat performer, like you find on Friesland, or I would say the Groningen, which again is coming. But it's really having decent DPM. You do have survivability like heal, and the game changer, short burst smoke, and increased credit earning makes it pretty good. By the way, you have 10 torpedoes like on Neustrashimy, 10 kilometer. Pretty good. The reload time might be slightly higher, only like 7 seconds. But, by the way, British acceleration does not have speed boost, but acceleration really helps a lot speed juking, and smoking up really helps a lot disengaging. Great destroyer. Even though it's a Jutland, I have explained the advantages. You can clearly see that Andrew Cunningham with increased credit earning helps a lot, making this ship recommended, to be honest. It's still a recommendation, even though it's a Jutland at tier 9. Alright, so now we have a French cruiser. Heavy cruiser, large cruiser, whatever we call it, the Carnot. Now, I don't know why Wargaming has done something bad with Carnot. Like, Carnot is a bit weird, in a way that, even though it does have 305mm guns that you find on Azuma, for some reason, the reload time on the Carnot is one tier. It literally feels like one tier lower compared to the Azuma. Azuma has like 17.6 something like that reload time. The Carnot has a base reload time of 25 seconds after the main battery mod 3. Like, this is a huge sort of disadvantage. You do have like how many guns? That's 7? Oh yeah, you do have like 10 guns, I think. Yeah, you do have like 10 guns, but for just an extra turret, they just significantly worsen the reload time. It just kind of not makes sense. As you can see, the AP DPM is definitely worse than Azuma for sure. The HE DPM, yes, the AP is definitely better, 8.7k, but it's not like super better in terms of alpha. HE also have like reduced fire chance, like 25% fire chance, but do have slightly better alpha damage compared to the Germans, but it's not like really good as compared to the Azuma. Azuma has like 5.6k alpha, which really good, right? You do have, however, really good armor. Like you can see here, you have 36mm deck armor, 30mm side armor, so you can tank well, but then you do have like gigantic superstructure. You take a lot of damage from destroyers. They pen you full. The battleships can overmatch you from 25, but that's the problem with Azuma and the Agir. Okay, but you know, you do also have the engine boost, which is kind of the star of the show. Carnot does have really good speed, which you cannot do either on Azuma, either on Agir. 20% speed boost definitely helps a lot, increasing its speed to 40 knots, which is good. The concealment is also as good as Agir and Azuma, but still, the reload time on the guns, the DPM that you are missing out is something that I don't like. Like, you have like 69, that's 70k plus, that is like 116k HEDPM. Compared to the Azuma's like 160 something HEDPM. Like, the HEDPM is not that good. It's as equal as the Agir, because you do have higher alpha, but the reload time kind of makes it as equal as the DPM compared to the Agir. The HP pool is decent, sure, but you do get fire duration like the heavy cruisers, okay? You do have the armor better than Azuma, but that the DPM is missing. The reload time is significantly higher. This is the biggest gripe that I have about the Carnot, and kind of unrecommends, or I would say not worth it compared to the Azuma and Agir, just because of the reload time. Anti-defense is also fine, but even then, it's sort of not worth it just because of that the missing DPM it does over the Azuma and Agir. If it gets the buff, it can be changed. At least it can start to look like somewhat a decent, interesting speed boost type of heavy cruiser compared to the Azuma. Yes, that's what I can say about the Carnot. Alright, so the next ship is going to be the battleship, which is going to be Marco Polo. Italian battleship. Now, this battleship is a bit weird. Let's talk about the strengths first. It does have SAP, 406mm guns. You are literally overmatching 27mm plating of cruisers with the SAP shells. Okay, and SAP shell does insane damage, 14k alpha. I mean, and the 406 caliber gun you are also not going to find on Colombo. Colombo is a tier 10 tech tree, really kind of broken as of right now. Battleship having so many shells, but still having 380mm guns. So not like the overmatch that you can do. Yes, you do still insane damage because you throw so many shells. Marco Polo does have 9 guns, 1.9 Sigma, does have really good armor, okay? Like as you can see, 55mm attack, which is pretty nice, 70mm side armor, so it can tank well. But on the other hand, I don't know, somewhat is a problem with the Marco Polo is that you shoot the guns, the amount of shell hitting onto a ship with 1.9 Sigma is kinda not worth it. Like, it's an RNG. What I find in Marco Polo is like sometimes you do like crazy damage. You have like 9 shells, they have recently buffed the Sigma value, they have also recently buffed the reload time, which kinda makes me recommend the Marco Polo. But here's the problem, the RNG factor when playing Marco Polo is still there. Like, you can sometimes deal really good damage with the sap shells onto the battleship, but it cannot be still like Colombo. It's not even close to that of Colombo because Colombo has a lot of shells, okay? But however, and also one thing that kinda is a disadvantage, that Marco Polo does not have the smoke, the exhaust smoke generator, which is the feature, the biggest feature of the Italians that every Tech 3 ship has. Like even some of the premiums have, like for example the Paolo Emilio, the Ferrante Gonzaga, another premium, they all have smoke. But Marco Polo does not have smoke. It's kind of like Lauria in a way, but Lauria does come up with really good concealment. It does also have a good concealment, but still not that impressive. The speed is also good, but still not impressive compared to Lauria. So RNG is a problem. RNG is there, the dispersion is okay, the range is not good at all, 19 kilometers, not really impressive. Yes, you do have spotter plane, and I am using the spotting aircraft mod 1, does improve the time, duration of the spotting aircraft, but it's still, with the RNG, causes issues with Marco Polo. You are tanky, but not having a lot of HP, and you take huge damage by them. You can be citadel as well. You do have vulnerable citadel, do not forget about that. This is a vulnerable citadel. It's a slope deck. If someone shoots you at mid to long range, you're going to be getting smashed. I'm telling you that the AP will hurt onto the broadside of Marco Polo. So you got to be careful from that. Otherwise, it's not a bad battleship. It's just that the RNG is the problem. Random number generator 1.9 Sigma seems to be not that good enough. I felt that sometimes you get good damage, sometimes you get good games, but sometimes you struggle, honestly, to get some shells where you want to hit. And so that's why, if you want to buy Marco Polo, and I will give you a recommendation, only on a condition that if you like sap shells, if you like a unique aspect of 406mm guns, which kinda going to change with the Affondatore, which is gonna be another super Italian, not going to be another, I'm going to say it's the super Italian battleship that does have this caliber guns, but it does not have SAP. So the SAP at 406 caliber remains unique on Marco Polo. If that is something that you are thinking of buying, and if you are fine with this good armor, if you're fine with this HP, go for it. It's not bad. It's actually somewhat good. And I would kind of recommend you, because I have played recently and I find it pretty comfortable, doing good damage. But again, totally up to you. If you do not like RNG, it can sometimes make you struggle as well. Alright, so the next ship is going to be the Jager, which is a pan-European destroyer. And to be honest, let's talk about the weaknesses first. We will talk about the strengths. It's a very, very interesting destroyer. I would say it's a pea shooter. It throws a lot of torpedoes, but man oh man, those are blistering fast. Those torpedoes will come and hit you, not gonna say hard, but they will hit you softly over time, and they will just rack up damage over time with those small damaged torpedoes. Well, let's talk about the weaknesses first. So the Jager, the biggest weakness of the Jager, absolutely garbage guns. You don't have guns, okay? Think of that you cannot fight against any destroyer unless it's like 2,000 or 3,000 HP. Yes, if it does have that much HP, you do have like a mediocre 87,000 HE DPM. To put that into perspective, the Shimakaze, which is a torpedo boat destroyer at tier 10, which kind of has very, very mediocre HE DPM, still having 120 to 130 kg DPM, Jager even struggles to go up 100k compared to the Shimakaze's 120 and 130k DPM. So it's basically having like tier 4, tier 5 level of DPM on tier 9 destroyer. Because in fact, it's kind of like a tier 4 or tier 5 destroyer in terms of the hull. This hull is basically of, I would say, maybe if I'm not wrong, it's like World War I era or something like that. So yeah, the gun performance is not good. The HP pool is also not good either. You can have the HP pool of 19,000 if you build for survivability expert, which I would highly recommend. But on the other hand, what really going up for Jager is the concealment, the speed, the torpedoes, which really specifically makes Jager a very pure torpedo boat destroyer. Now, unlike Z44, which like kind of feels like, I mean, you do have torpedoes, but you don't have the gun power. Jager at least have more power in terms of torpedo performance because you throw like 12 torpedoes, and these are like 95 knots of torpedoes, which makes them unique. Z44 torpedoes are not unique, right? Yes, you throw a lot. Yes, you do have better DPM, I would say, compared to Jager, but the speed of the torpedoes you will not going to find on any other destroyer other than the Jager or other than, I would say, Ostergotland and Holland at tier 10 Tech 3, tier 9 Tech 3 destroyers, respectively, for Pan-European. So that's what really makes it unique. Very fast torpedoes. They hit somewhat hard if you land all the torpedoes, which, by the way, can happen. And for that, you have like the best concealment at tier 9. This is basically Asashio, Minigumo, the Japanese line of concealment we are talking about. So you basically get really good concealed. It's not 100 rating, but it's really, really, really competitive, okay? So you basically outspot all destroyers at tier 10 and basically all destroyers at tier 9. So no problems with that. Weaknesses, however, you don't have smoke. You don't have, you do have the heal, a strength, weird enough. They have given Jager the strength, but you don't have smoke. You have absolutely trash entire defense. Like this is tier 2 entire defense on a tier 9 ship. You will not going to shoot down a single plane. Ever. If the CV put the fighter on top of you, well, you're absolutely screwed because you cannot even smoke up. So yeah, Jager does have tons of weaknesses, but on the other hand, it gets the most funniest torpedoes that I have ever thought that a destroyer will get. Jager does that funny thing in many ways. Go and try it out. It's a very, very fun destroyer. And I will recommend this over Z44. Why? Because it's a very special, unique play style with these torpedoes that you will not going to find on anything. It's pure fun. It's not going to carry. It's not going to be, exactly like Neustrashimy or any other competitive destroyer like Groningen, but it is still worth it just because of the torpedoes, because they just get spammed and they can be pretty annoying, to be honest. Oh boy. It's definitely worth it, to be honest. Alright, for tier 9, last but not the least, we have the tier 9 destroyer, which is the Dutch Groningen. Now, Groningen is impressive. I actually like Groningen quite a lot. It's a cold destroyer and I love it for a couple of reasons. The strength is the gunpowder. Look at the DPM performance. This DPM performance is pretty insane. Look at that. HE DPM 280,000. To put that DPM into perspective, some of the tier 10 competitive destroyers have probably like 250k HE DPM. Groningen has somewhat more than that with captain skills and upgrades. It's the pure gunboat performance, while at the same time you are not losing out much on anything else. For example, you might be thinking that you might miss out on something. Well, it's not missing out on that, except that it does have worse concealment. It does have like 6.4 kilometer concealment, which is sort of a balance. If it has like 6 kilometer concealment for some reason, you can outspot some torpedo boat destroyers, which, by the way, I remind you of Z44, and then you will basically just eat them alive. You literally eat destroyers alive with this HE and AP DPM. It's just impressive with 4 of the guns, by the way. Decent HP. By the way, if you don't like CVs, it's a really good platform. Entire platform, it's actually pretty good. Not like Holland. Holland, again, pan-European destroyer. But Groningen does somewhat well with defensive air fire and with this decent continuous air damage that against CVs, you will definitely do somewhat good against tier 8s for sure. Tier 10s, tier 10s will definitely gonna suck. But even then, it's pretty good. You do have the hydro, 5 kilometer hydro. You can basically rush the DDs. That's a big advantage. You rush the DDs. You basically farm them with this insane HEDPM. And if you feel like it, that there is a battleship pushing you, and there is someone that is spotting that battleship, you smoke up, and you basically farm with this absurd DPM. And watch the Daka will eventually kill him with this, by the way, 10.5% fire chance. On a single shell, 10.5% fire chance, reload time 1.5 seconds with this captain skills. Yeah, you will set gazillion fires, I can tell you that. You will set so much fires at tier 9, especially if it's like tier 8 and tier 7. They have worse coefficient fire resistance. The values are pretty worse compared to tier 10s. You will have more chance in setting fires onto the lower tier, so this will get even more powerful. So Groningen, in my opinion, is a straight up recommendation. It's easier to play because you smoke up and farm, and you have hydro to protect yourself against torpedoes. You do not have the speed boost. Yes, you don't have that thing, but you do have somewhat decent speed, somewhat still decent speed without the speed boost at 38 knots. So it can work really well, and I will absolutely recommend it. It's one of the very powerful tier 9 cold destroyers out there for their gun performance. That actually can carry the games. Unlike Jager, that is purely for torpedo experience, for fun, Groningen is the exact opposite. Not having torpedoes, by the way, I haven't talked about that. It does not have a single torpedo. Biggest disadvantage, but even then, extreme. This is the extreme that you can get on Groningen in terms of gun performance. This is the extreme that you can get from torpedo performance. So, is it worth it? Well, I have explained the DPM numbers. You can clearly see how ridiculous this ship can be with these absurd DPM numbers. Every destroyer will get farmed to death relatively quickly, even though you don't have heal, which could have made this ship pretty much blatantly overpowered. So, I think that's it for the video. I thought that I will make tier 10s as well, but honestly, it's kind of mind-boggling that how many ships that we currently have right now. Tier 9s and tier 10s, all of them. So yeah, I will try to upload the tier 10 one in the later video, in the next part of the video, and hopefully you will get more value. So I hope you guys like it and enjoyed it. If you have any comments, please let me know in the comment section. And if you are thinking of buying a cold ship, or if I have missed out something, please let me know in the comments. And thank you guys for watching. And by the way, last but not the least, I would like to give a big shout out and thank you to my Patreon members. These guys are the ones directly supporting me through Patreon platform. And if you want to become one, I can give variety of benefits. You can go and check out the description in the video where I have explained, or at least I have given you the link of Patreon where you can check out all the perks related to the subscription that you're about to do or something like that. And if you have any questions, always let me know in the comments. I hope this video, this video will be valuable and somewhat useful for the newer players and experienced players out there. Till then, take care and peace out.